At this year's E3, Bethesda seemed to surprise everyone by announcing The Elder Scrolls 6. It even surprised Bethesda in a way because the game is probably around 5 years out. It won't be released anytime soon, so it's a very good time for the top 7 what The Elder Scrolls 6 needs to be good. A show dedicated to giving Bethesda some feedback as to what they can improve in the series to make this grand adventure truly shine. To make Tamriel great again, if you will. So Todd, if you're listening, first hi, I hope you're having fun making the game, and I hope I'm gonna have fun playing it. These are my personal suggestions as to how the next Elder Scrolls game can surpass anything that came before it. Well, most of the things that came before it in the majority of aspects, because I doubt you're gonna make it as big as Daggerfall, because that would be ridiculous. I'm honestly not expecting that, and nobody really should, because Daggerfall was a lot of empty space and repetition. So with that being said, let's get it started with number 7, better interactivity. Now by this I mean that you should give the player the ability to interact with more things in better ways in the world of the game. And when I say things, I'm also referring to the NPCs. Build a system that will allow you to have different reputations with people based on, well, not just their location or who you murder around there, but your reputation as somebody who really sucks up to rich people, or somebody who's a hero of the downtrodden, or somebody who, I don't know, tends to really like slapping wood elves for some reason. I mean, have individually social stratified reputations for a lot of segments. You know, like Daggerfall had that system where you could have different reputations depending on the social strata. And this could be influenced by simply the way you speak to people. Allow the player to be mean, to be rude, to be blunt or polite, or a total kiss-ass to some people. Have that degree of social interactivity. I'm not saying that you should add marriages again, because they didn't really do much in Skyrim either. They were more like an Easter egg. But that could also be a thing again. I mean, why not? Though it would be nice if it was a bit more in-depth this time, so, you know, making families and stuff, but again, that's not really the kind of interactivity that I want the game to go to necessarily. I want interactivity with the world and the characters, both in the social way that I said already, and in the idea that, you know, you can break windows in real life and crawl through them instead of just going through the door. It would be nice if you could do that in the next Elder Scrolls game, or you know how most doors are made of wood and you're usually carrying around axes and fire spells? Do you really need to pick a lock to open a door? Honestly, most houses are made of wood, and frankly speaking, considering the level of power you reach in most of these games, even the ones made from bricks and stone, I don't think it'll be such a great idea to have the next game be filled with buildings that can only be entered through a door, usually a single front door. It sort of takes you out of the experience, is what I'm saying. But not as much as number 6. The interface. I must have said this a million times before, and I will continue to say it. The interface in Morrowind was pretty much as close to perfect as you could have gotten it for this series. Everything since has been a complete regression, going deeper and deeper down a very ugly and counterintuitive, counterproductive, badly designed rabbit hole. Now, considering that the next generation of consoles for which this game will be made will probably include some kind of touch functionality like the PlayStation 4 already does, it's about time you bring back the old style of interface. Then with resizable windows, with an inventory that doesn't make you want to claw your eyes out when you try to find anything, maybe, just maybe without that compass that always shows you exactly what you have to find and where, maybe go back to that style of design where you had explanations for locations of things. I know that some people won't like it because reading and listening and paying attention in games is a faux pas these days. You're expected to just keep pressing forward and winning, but at least in every other aspect, the interface can be improved so much more by just making it a bit more functional and not taking inspiration from the iPod. The worst, like the most bare bones interface you could have would be the old Underworld one. You know, with the paper doll and the bags. That should be your baseline for usability, and Morrowind should be the one you should be shooting towards. Because on a PC it had the perfect interface. And I kind of like the old journal, you know, with the wiki style links before Wikipedia was a thing. That was nice. Number 5, better guilds. You know where this is going. That's something that I've mentioned many times again, and probably will constantly. In Skyrim, you can become the leader of the Wizard Guild, the Mages Guild, not by showing your prowess as a wizard, not by painstakingly crafting spells meant to sunder the world apart or proving that you are in fact the best wizard by killing the previous best wizard in combat. And you will have Daikatans for some reason. No, it's just a bunch of quests that don't really test your magical aptitude that much. You can't really have the progression in the hierarchy of the guilds be tied directly to a story in that way. Again, a good example of this was Morrowind. Yeah, you had quests to progress in rank, and that would eventually lead you to being the head honcho of the guild, but up until that point, up until you got those quests, you were supposed to be at a certain level of proficiency with your magical aptitude, and you had to do a bit of elbow rubbing in the internal politics bit of it. It felt more like a guild, one with branches all over the world instead of just some weirdos you found in a castle that decided to make you your leader. So have better guilds in mind, and heck, even have more guilds than just wizard and mage and dark brotherhood and thieves. You had the temple guys in Morrowind where you had to do a pilgrimage and talk to the dead and taunt the Daedra, and the Daedra would say something that probably will be banned if you say it in the next Elder Scrolls game, because it's quite foul. There were a bajillion guilds in Daggerfall. You could bring some of them back. Hell, have your procedural generation content quest thing, your Radiant quest system, or whatever it was called, have that generate quests for the guild, for the guilds, for more of them. Be the knights of something or other, the warriors of this and that, the spelunkers of digging up old stuff. Yeah, they may get a bit samey in terms of content, but let's not kid ourselves. Pretty much everything in Skyrim got repetitive quite quickly. Speaking of which, number 4, better enemy variety. Let's have dungeons with more varied stuff in them. Not just the rats, or pardon, the Skaven, or the rats and the Draugrs, because that's what you were fighting for most of the game. Rats and Draugrs, or Draug, or whatever they were called. The skeleton dudes, the occasional bandit. More variety would not hurt, would it? Yeah, you also had spiders, sure, but how about more stuff, more different things that you have to fight differently, that react differently to you, to everything around. Hell, add a gelatinous cube. It would at least be unconventional in the Elder Scrolls, or at least some slime, as long as you don't constantly repeat the slime like Brackensang did, where basically the enemies you would find in the first dungeon would be also the ones you fought in the last dungeon. They just had more hit points now. So more enemies, more varied enemies, enemies that do different things, enemies that act differently, behave differently. I mean, we've got an entire world of kooky, strange, bizarre oddities with a lore that's, well, Vivek did something with a spear once, and I'm gonna repeat it. So you can probably think of many wonderful different things to put in there. Remember how so few people in Daggerfall had clothes on? Oh, that's a whole other matter. Number 3, make magic great again. Skyrim took out the ability to create magic. You couldn't forge your own spells anymore. You couldn't construct them out of the ether. You couldn't build them with soul gems, and I think they were used. No, soul gems were just for infusing stuff, for enchanting. No, you could build spells. You could make grand spells that would adapt to your needs, to your playstyle, to your choices. You could make something like a universal cure that would rid you of all the diseases that you would find through the world. Can't remember really that many diseases in Skyrim though. And most of all, spells that would allow you to fly. You removed those because you said that you wanted to create a more, directed type of game. No. put them back. Let the player like play to their heart's content. If they see a mountain, they should be able to go to the mountain by shooting upwards at the speed of sound and then falling down and smashing their heads onto the mountain and dying because they got the spell wrong. For magic does indeed come at a cost, but that cost also involves being awesome. And let's face it, that's not a cost, that's a benefit. Number 2, embrace open design. I'm not saying just open world design, but open the design a bit more. As I've alluded to when I talked about the better guilds, where you're not supposed to have the progression based on the story of the guild, but on the what you actually do, what you can do. Same thing as well for things like lycanthropy. Like in Skyrim, you became a werewolf because of a quest and you got cured because you finished that quest. It really didn't feel like I accomplished anything. I didn't become a werewolf because I got infected when I fought a werewolf somewhere in a deep dark dungeon that I found by accident, or somewhere in a forest at night with the full moons and the howling, and it was just wasted potential, sort of like the Elder Scrolls Online, where you could also become a werewolf through a story, not because you were at the Shrine of Hercene and were surrounded by werewolves non-stop and nobody was biting you. And that open design would also entail that you actually use a different engine. Now, I know you've said that creation engine is a new thing, but let's face it, it's not. Maybe you got an upgraded license for the Netimers/Gamebryo engine so that you don't have to call it the Gamebryo engine anymore, but it's the same. And if it's not the same, then you spent a lot of time making the exact same engine that behaves in the exact same way, has the exact same bugs, has the exact same behavior. And one of those behaviors is the fact that it cannot allow interiors and exteriors to exist at the same time in the world. As long as you have that, a separation between those worlds, the game will constantly have to suffer in terms of the freedom it offers the player, because can you knock down a door to a building just because you have a flaming axe of wood splintering? No, because the door is kind of a loading area. But if you were to fix that, if you were to use an engine that was more on par with The Witcher 3's engine, the Red engine, or the Red 2 engine, Red Engine 2, then you would have a plethora of new options at your disposal. Sure, it would mean that you would have to change the way you design your game. Let's face it, you haven't changed that since... God damn, you've never changed that. I think even Arena had separate interiors and exteriors. My god, it's about time you made a difference. It's about time you put interiors and exteriors in the same cohesive continuity. I mean, the next-gen consoles will probably have enough RAM. They had enough RAM for The Witcher 3 to do that, and let's face it, The Witcher 3 is huge. Though sure, it may not have as many interiors as you would need for an Elder Scrolls game, but hey, that's what the next-gen is for, so it could work. It should work. And again, open design. Let people fly, let people do whatever they want. Let people kill story NPCs, and again, tell them, well, you just fucked the story, but hey, you do you. Or instead of that, have substitutes. Have a way for your story to continue, because let's face it, nobody's actually playing this for the story. It sort of stopped being really good after Morrowind. Like, the highlight of Skyrim is the Edgelord's favorite new quote about, is it better to be born evil and fight against your nature or to be born good? That's the only thing that people got out of it. And again, it's mainly used by edgelords who are 12 and think that's deep. Yeah, absolutely, still have your story there, just like you did with Morrowind, and you still let me fly around like an idiot and crash into things and finish the game in 15 minutes if I put the investment in it. But allow people to move around more, to experience more, to do more, with more tools, with better tools, to let them fully enjoy this wonderful world that you have created. And number 1 is Daggerfall level character customization. Let's face it, it all went downhill after Daggerfall. In Daggerfall, you could basically start as a vampire. Well, not technically a vampire because, you know, you did not have vampiric powers, but you could play as a character that was severely allergic to sunlight, but healed in darkness, and that would change essentially your difficulty level. You had a system that let you create any kind of character you wanted and play with that character exactly like you wanted. It was a superb system. It was one that you can't really replicate what the perks you had in Skyrim or what you have in Fallout. It was its own thing. It was deep. Well, at least it made you think it was deep. It made you dream. It sparked your imagination. It made you see different ways in which you could play this game. And I know you've said, I think you're the one that said it, that front-loading all those statistics was maybe not a good idea because the player's not gonna know how they can play. Well, that's okay. Don't put the statistics in there, just leave the other stuff. The characters may burst into flames if they touch holy objects, or characters so afraid of water they may spontaneously grow wings and fly away, or the classic will absolutely slap any wood elf they see in front of them because they just hate those little bastards. Think of the possibilities, of the richness in role-playing that you have there, of the endless potential to create a game that everybody will replay so many goddamn times that you could port it to every platform for the next decade and a half. And everybody will keep buying it. Doesn't that sound great? Of course it does. Well, so ends my top 7 of how to make The Elder Scrolls 6 great. A special mention is awarded to better map design. A lot of stuff in Skyrim was just flat land with really not that much interesting in it. You could take a few pointers from Gothic, because they used to make really kick-ass awesome maps back in the day. And of course to adding more voice lines to the guards so they don't all say the exact same thing constantly. Oh yeah, and stop making NPCs immoral. Just please, stop. I know that the ESRB is gonna throw a hissy fit, but really, can they stop you? Can they stop the sequel of Skyrim from letting you invoke a demon that's gonna kill everybody in the town, including the kids? I think not. Goodbye.